In order to avoid the spam folder, you need to be working on this months before the sale starts.
I think this year alone we've hit more than 110K revenue just from email marketing, just from one single flow.
If you're still using basic email marketing setup for your store, this is why you need to step up.
How much email revenue did you do for the past Q4?
Probably should have actually calculated that number. It's probably in the millions, of course.
This is Mike. He owns one of the largest email marketing agencies in Europe. He's been crushing it for e-commerce brands with emails for over 3 years now. His methods help clients generate multiple 7 figures in email marketing revenue for the Black Friday weekend. And today, he's gonna share all the secrets on how to get the most out of Black Friday and Cyber Monday and the rest of Q4.
Okay, Mike, it's very cool to have you here on this interview. Thank you so much for coming. And yeah, for our YouTube audience, can you quickly tell us more about yourself, what you're doing, what your mission is, and how you're pretty much transforming e-commerce brands?
Yeah, of course. Thanks for the invitation, Black. It's a pleasure to be here, and yeah, pleasure to be invited on this to speak on this channel. In summary about me, I'm the founder and owner of an email marketing agency called Prox Agency, and our focus is basically email marketing. What we do is we work with large e-commerce stores, primarily from the US. And what we do with them is basically help them get the most out of email and SMS marketing. But alongside with this, we work on other retention channels like Messenger, like reviews, and we work on strategies around increasing a store's retention.
So right now it's Q4, and everyone is talking about ad strategies, how to scale like crazy. But I feel like not everyone is speaking about backend. And you're a backend specialist, right? You're optimizing, e-commerce stores backend. So what trends have you been seeing recently from brands? How are they dealing with, with the backend during Q4? And what is the main difference between the winning brands and the losing brands when it comes to their retention strategy during Q4?
Yeah, so first I would point out that one of the main retention channels for e-commerce, from observation, I think you agree with that, is of course email marketing. Alongside with that, you have SMS as well. We have some elements on the website, but it's mostly email, right? So I guess we'll be talking mostly about that. What I see that most brands are missing out is the fact that they're not organizing it at all. Like what many are doing is that in the very last moment they're like, let's just have a sale, and they launch some sale on the website. They haven't told anyone about it before that, including many of their contractors and employees. And then yeah, things start in the very last moment. There's a low campaign frequency, and yeah, basically they still get results, but really nearly not as many as they could if they have organized everything in advance. That's why we tell our clients a lot how important it is to prepare for Q4 in advance, by not only, of course, by ensuring they have the stock to fulfill orders, but also making a calendar and mapping the stages there with what they're going to be focusing on, and what are going to be their promotions, as well as what offers they're going to use, because that's also very important.
Okay, so what I got from this is pretty much you need to have clarity on offers and clarity on deadlines and clarity on what you're gonna do exactly what, right? Because it can be a huge mess. And yeah, so if someone is watching and they have a pretty small e-commerce brand, right, they don't have a big email marketing team, or they're not working with an agency yet, what advice would you give to them so that they can still extract a lot of email and backend revenue? However, they don't have the time resources to prepare everything in advance. And how would you structure that?
for store owners that have newer stores, I think it's especially important to focus on a great offer during this period. The great offer is going to be everything. It's not only going to determine your success with owned marketing channels, but also, of course, with the advertising and everything front marketing related. So look at your products, evaluate the margins, and try to create something that looks like is a really good deal. What a lot of our clients are doing, and what I've seen working really, really well, especially for high margin products, is when they do an offer like BOGO, aka buy one get one free, or buy two get one free, something of this kind that just gives the person something interesting, something cool for free when they buy something else. Lots of brands also do like a minimum order value, so that it's like buy two get one free. So they just encourage people to buy more, and this helps them increase their average order value. And it's also a great strategy. Now, other than that, oh, I also forgot to share it. Another approach that we've seen work really great for some brands is when they introduce a limited number of coupons that can be used. So let's say you can create 1,000 coupons for 30% off, and then 10,000 for 20% off. And then you're going to send an email or have that mentioned in an ad or on the website that you have those 1,000 coupons for 30% off, and for those who missed that, they'll have to use the 20% off. If you see that people are actually are really buying that, and you reach that 1,000 sale from the 30% one, nothing would stop you from prolonging it or just increasing the number.
Yeah.
Because that's urgency leveraged really, really well during the Black Friday.
Yeah, that's a great scarcity hack that I didn't really think of. So yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. But back to the offers part. So you mentioned buy one get one, and bundle offers and stuff like that. And we've definitely seen a lot of brands in the past that have very cheap front-end offers, right? They cut their margins, they lower their prices, and so on. So is that also the case for email marketing? Do you see a lot of brands, doing that, and also pretty much shooting themselves in the leg by doing so? And what's your opinion on, cheap offers, cutting margins, all that stuff?
I think, of course, during this period, high margin brands have a huge advantage over low margin brands, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of our clients are actually high margin companies, and we can easily afford to like cut that in half to create something that looks really great. Or we don't even need to do it in half. We can cut it by less, and still have a great offer. For low margin brands, that's where things can get a bit more tricky and dependent on the particular niche that you're in. I think at this point, what I would recommend and what can be done in this case is, if you have low margins, the first one is, rather than just giving a percentage off, because of course those percentages are valuable to you, you can see if you can give something that's cheap to you for free as a gift. Or another thing that you could look at as an option is if you encourage people to buy a lot to get some sort of an offer. Again, it would depend on the product, with some items that would be impossible. Well, let's say you sell some kinds of supplements at a low margin. You can incentivize people to buy 5 and get 1 for free, or get a certain percentage off in that situation. Or what if you rarely give discounts? I think the urgency offer I mentioned earlier with the limited number of coupons could still do a great job. I'm actually interested, like, what are also your thoughts on this? What are your observations on brands with low margins doing this? How are they approaching it?
So pretty much from my experience, of course, like on the front end, because you're spending so much on ads, you have to have a high value offer. Otherwise, you're just acquiring customers and you pretty much rely on LTV for repeat purchases and make money on the back end. However, the problem is that when you pretty much have a cheap offer, you very often attract low quality buyers that are just hunting for the deal and would never buy over and over again. So I'm actually wondering, have you had any issues with your backend strategy for the brands that you support when they have a very cheap front end offer? They're obviously not very profitable on the front end. You onboard them, you start working with them, and you figure out, hey, you have low revenue contribution from email, but it's not because our strategy suck, but it's actually because your buyers suck. So have you had this issue?
Actually, we have a couple of brands that are low margin products. But what's interesting for them is that they're not that dependent on the season because they're more like need products rather than buy products. So we're talking about healthcare items here, and basically some various products for babies or for people with particular needs. And what we see with them during this period is that sales don't go up significantly because it's a product that you need all the time, but we can still observe some sort of a positive curve up by introducing like a very little offer because people are already in a buying mood and you can incentivize them to just buy more of your product and suggest some additional stuff just by giving a small offer. You don't need to go too far with it. It's the nature of those businesses. And of course, in our case, they are pretty established brands that have a solid base of customers. So, and it's easy for them to just to generate a good amount of sales by introducing a small offer because they have a huge audience that's already buying from them.
Yeah.
But if you're a starting brand, and you are selling a low margin product and you're trying to scale with it, in my opinion, that's quite a hard thing to do in general, not only during Q4, but in general, if you have because on the front end you won't be able to afford the high cost per purchase. On the back end, you're going to have to be careful with the offers that you give. So this is quite restricting and making things a lot harder.
Yeah, definitely agree with you on that. So as we already know, in Q4, everyone tries to squeeze out the most out of the front end, out of the back end. But sales is not everything, right? Like it's not about just generating as much revenue as possible and like spamming your audience. Obviously, you can get into the spam folder as a result. So what are the best practices to not overdo this and risk landing into the spam folder? And what's a good balance between, performance and, keeping your email list healthy?
That's actually Q4 and especially Black Friday is an especially interesting period for email marketers because things tend to get crazy during this time. What we do with many of our clients, especially during the peak sale, is we send a lot of emails, like a lot, especially during the Black Friday week. We might send more than once per day. I have multiple reminders, not only with email, but also with SMS. And what we see typically is that, yes, open rates and click rates are lower than usual, which is not a sustainable option. You cannot afford to have such low metrics at all the time, because that's when your domain reputation is going to get impacted and your emails will start going to spam. But the key element is that if you do it once, everything, or twice, or just for one small period of time, that shouldn't impact you, especially if in the months before that you've been sending to more narrow segments, you've been sending like not every day. Even some brands can still send every day when they don't have a sale because they have a really engaged audience. But the key here is that they have sustained high engagement on with the email marketing, so that their reputation has grown quite positive over time. And then during the Black Friday, when they scaled their frequency with a lot more emails and by sending to their entire audience, their spam rate wasn't impacted. In summary, I would say in order to avoid the spam folder, you need to be working on this months before the sale starts. Because if you start looking into this when in November, I would say it's quite late. Yeah, it still doesn't mean you shouldn't be sending emails. You just have to take into account that a lot of those emails might not be as efficient as they could be if you would have started sending targeted campaigns with high engagement a couple of months earlier.
Yeah, back to our first takeaway, like preparation is just key. When it comes to email marketing, like knowing in advance what you plan to do, when you want to do it, preparing all the templates, all the copies, all the offers in advance is just the most important thing if you want to have a successful Q4. And just out of curiosity, I guess you were working with a lot of brands in the previous Q4. I'm wondering how much email revenue did you do for the past Q4 combined for all the brands that you're supporting?
That's an interesting question and I probably should have actually calculated that number to be able to see all the revenue, but I'll be honest, I don't know the exact amount, but it's probably in the millions, of course. For many of our brands, especially during this time, we've generated over 30, in some cases even over 40% of their revenue from email, and that would definitely translate to millions, like no doubt.
That's crazy.
Because of course, if you are a brand that on a normal month has 100K, during the Q4 month, you might scale to 200K, and imagine how much that would mean to you if you could add 30 or 40% on top of that without paying the cost per purchase that you pay for Facebook.
Yeah,
With
exactly.
Klaviyo, with the email marketing, you just pay the monthly subscription to your email platform and you're good to go.
And probably some brands are just clearing multiple six figures just on Black Friday, Cyber Monday weekend, right?
Yeah, actually, from many of our clients, we've heard that because of the high cost per purchase, has been a key channel for their business in general that's been making the business really profitable for them. And if it wasn't for email and own channel marketing in general, they would have stayed at no for a long time. Again, that's simply because for those sales, you're not paying for those campaigns to be sent out individually. Of course, if you have a really large list, which would be nice if you have, with past customers, your subscription to Klaviyo could cost a couple of thousand, but compared to what that can generate in return, it's just incomparable to the model with cost per purchase.
Yeah, we've definitely felt it in lower seasons, and we've had months when we were, at very low profit margin. And I see, okay, we actually got returning customers, and then I opened the Klaviyo account, and I was like, our actual profit is coming mostly from email. So when cost per purchase goes up, email marketing is the savior of the brand and the loyal customers. But you have to pretty much set the right foundation, right? As you mentioned. But do you think there's a bad impact for the brand's LTV if you squeeze out a lot of your backend audience in your brand during Q4 and then run out of repeat purchases during Q1 and Q2?
That's an interesting question. And I think it could depend a lot on the product that you sell again. A lot of brands will have products that you sell once and the buyer doesn't need another one, right?
Yeah.
Like some cool gadgets, for example.
Yeah.
But you also have brands like supplements where you have a bunch of different products and and you can do a lot of stuff there. And a lot of brands also get the positive side of New Year, New Me trend after January, but in health especially, and they benefit a lot from it. Back to your question, I think that shouldn't be stopping you from squeezing the most out of Q4.
Yeah.
You can think of if you can sell another product, if you can do something different, offer other type of value later on, you can think about that. But in my opinion, you shouldn't be careful about it during Q4 by sending less emails or scaling the ads less, supposedly because you're going to squeeze your audience too much for the next couple of months.
Yeah. So pretty much in terms of list size and audience size, keep it broad. But as far as margins are concerned and offers, you have to be really careful, right?
Yeah, yeah, of course you gotta make the offer that's still profitable for you. Unless you're really confident that the LTV is gonna make it, unless you have a solid business model that's worked for years. If you're a newer brand, just make the nature of your offer profitable for you. It's it could it could be it could be a good opportunity, but it can also really stumble you if you're just starting and you're selling at null or even at a loss, and then hoping that the LTV is gonna make it. If you do it, just make sure you have solid data you can rely on.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely agree. And that's been our approach with our brand as well. So, because you mentioned a few different industries, how can more niche specific brands leverage their weirdness and their difference compared to more mainstream industries with emails during Q4 and squeeze out even better performance and like more brand credibility and better trust with their customers?
I think if you're really industry specific and you're in a particular niche, like like gardening, like DIY, like
Hobbies, yeah.
or on the world of certain franchises, you always have to stick to this principle, but in this case, it's especially important that you stick to creating a community around your brand.
Mhm.
So you're not only just selling the products, making as many sales as possible, but you're also trying to establish some sort of relationship. I'm sure you've heard this a lot of times at different conferences that you got to build a customer relationship. Um, but in this case, it's especially important, and the ways you can do it is again, uh, email and SMS marketing, especially email marketing, can be really helpful here. If what you can do is you can set up your essential flows like the post purchase, the win back, the welcome flow, the abandoned cart in a way that reflects your brand's values also. Just share the story, share the benefit for the customer, and do it all the time. If you have cool content like cool interesting blog articles or videos, you can refer to them in your emails, especially in the post-purchase flow. What we do with many of our brands is when a customer buys, is that we send a thank you email that's sent together with the transactional email. So customer gets like the ugly receipt with what they bought, and then they get a well-looking, personally written email that just says thank you, and we're this cool brand, and we'll be careful with how we ship your product, expect updates from us, etc., etc. And then with the next few emails, we just go on to showcase the brands, some cool content, some usage instructions, some brand story, just to try to establish as much relationship as possible.
And do you always use templates for that? Do you always build out a template, or you also have like free form text, like very kind of personal and unprofessional? What's your opinion on that?
Plain text, yeah, that's a good mention. We usually do a combination of the two.
Okay.
So we do beautiful HTML emails that showcase the product in a cool way. But in some cases, we really like to do the letter from the founder thing, That's just and where we just imitate the founder themselves, and we do it with a plain text that doesn't have any images, that has that's doesn't have any buttons, and only uses hyperlinked text, the text that you can click.
Okay. Yeah, that's a very interesting approach. And just wondering, as an e-commerce entrepreneur, I have a lot of shipping delays during Q4. So I'm wondering, how can we prevent customer dissatisfaction with email marketing during Q4 and pretty much make the life of our customer support assistants much easier? So what's your opinion?
So with this one in particular, what's first of what's going to work best is if you communicate the possible delays in advance and that you're just transparent about it. What we do for many of our clients during the sale is with their front end offer, with their front end flows, meaning the abandoned cart, the welcome flow, browse amendment, we point out the sale. So we just add in order to not rework the whole flow structure we've built, we just add a small banner next to the main CTA. We don't change the email. We just add a small banner that's always the same that refers to the sale, and it mentions what the offer is.
Okay.
And then on the back end flows like the win back, the post purchase, the nurture, especially the post purchase, that's the most important one here. We add a text block that says that during the Black Friday we can expect possible shipping delays. Of course, that's for brands that have indicated that will be possible for them, to us, of course. And yeah, so we just mentioned that across all the emails that shipping might take longer, that if they have any questions, they got contact support. That's just be as transparent as possible. And then in addition to that, we might create a campaign that mentions that specifically. I actually remember last year you did a similar thing with your in your account.
Yeah, that's true. We actually had a crazy pre-Christmas action with our brand when we couldn't deliver orders and ship out orders for more than 10 days. So pretty much those delayed fulfillment emails came in clutch. And they helped us a lot with like easing off, customers' anger, because that was right before Christmas. So like people were buying those products for gifts. But nevertheless, emails can really help out with operations as well, as you mentioned. But since we don't have that much time left, what are your observations for this year's Q4 so far? What trends are you seeing? And what advice would you give to e-commerce entrepreneurs trying to adapt and be on top of the wave and crush their competition and really squeeze out the most out of Q4?
First, actually, so far, I don't see a particular jump in many businesses revenue attribution from email. But I wouldn't dare assuming that things are going bad, because we still have the main phase ahead of us. And we are really focused on those campaigns right now, just making sure during the sale itself we can squeeze the most out of it. Another thing that I would share is that it's nowadays, especially when the competition is so high in so many industries, it's important, and it can be really beneficial if you start in advance. So not on the Black Friday week itself, not on Black Friday itself, but you can look at starting a week prior to the sale, or even 2 weeks prior to the official Black Friday. One of our customers has already started the sale and is running it right now. They started it on the 1st of November, and they're going to be running it across the whole month. In general, to crush our competition, I think, as if you have planned properly, not just taking action spontaneously, but taking the time to look into the value that your product provides, into the branding and the story that you have, and making sure you prepare the campaigns in advance, you prepare all the creative in advance, you are already going to have a massive advantage over your competitors, because it's surprising how many, especially smaller brands, are not paying as much attention to it as they should. And yeah, look at how many campaigns you can create. Look at revamping your flows and improving and making them look better, pointing out the sale in as many ways as possible. And I think you already have a good advantage over your competitors, especially if your competitors are younger brands, or dropshippers that just have a spontaneous approach.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like some dropshippers don't even have email marketing. They just have abandoned cart and that's it. Oh, so yeah, thank you so much for sharing these. If you guys don't know him already, Mike is the owner of Prox Agency. I'll put a link somewhere in the description for his website. You can reach out to them. We've been working with them for more than 3 years now, and the results have been more than amazing. I think this year alone, and we're not a high retention brand, I think this year alone we've hit more than 110K revenue just from email marketing, just from one single flow. So definitely check out the stuff that they're doing. And yeah, thank you so much for being a guest in my interview series, and looking forward to speaking after Q4 so that you can share more results, hopefully amazing results for your clients, and have a great chat on how to crush it during not only Q4 but also Q1 and Q2. Thank you so much for sharing this, and yeah, keep crushing it.
Thank you so much. Like, again, it's always a pleasure to talk to you about these kind of stuff. And yeah, I'll be really glad to make another session later on where we can reflect on how things went and how things are in January and February in general.